Today we're going to be seeing what happens if you reflect a laser directly back into itself. Will it make the laser grow brighter and brighter in a positive feedback loop that continually rises in temperature, growing hotter and brighter until eventually either it destroys itself or all life on Earth? Or will something else happen that's much more interesting? So what I have here is a regular handheld red laser pointer. Inside of this, there's something called a laser diode. Laser diodes work like this. When you apply a current to the semiconductor, electrons in the N-type semiconductor combine with positive holes in the P-type semiconductor. When they meet, it releases a photon of light. These photons that are released go in random directions and they're incoherent, meaning that the peaks and valleys of their wavelengths don't match up exactly. But on either end of the semiconductor, there are these mirrors. These mirrors reflect any light that happened to hit them. Now, photons have an interesting property. Unlike electrons, they want to be in the same state at the same time. So if you have a photon near electrons and holes combining, they're more likely to release a photon that matches the phase and direction of other photons flying around it. This is called stimulated emission. Just having light bounce around the semiconductors makes them release light that matches the direction and phase, so it becomes coherent light. There's a little hole that some of the light can escape from, so the light that makes it out is mostly coherent light, where all the photons are doing the same thing, and hence you have laser light. So what happens if instead of letting that light out, we shine it right back where it came from? Will it just keep stimulating more and more light generation? Well, let's see. But before we do that, I'd like to thank the sponsor for this video, BetterHelp. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's 100% online. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 30,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of issues. To get started, you just answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you can talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via messaging, phone, or video call. You can message your therapist anytime and schedule a live session when it's convenient for you. And if your therapist isn't the right fit for you for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who's custom picked for you, more scheduling flexibility at a more affordable price. So get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/actionlab or click the link in the description. And thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to our experiment. A normal mirror has the silvered surface or the reflective surface on the back of the glass. So you get many reflections and it's kind of confusing and hard to look at. So I'm going to use a different type of mirror that's reflective on the front of the glass. Okay, now we have to figure out a way to shine this laser directly back into the tiny hole that it came out of. In order to get the laser to go directly back into the laser cavity, I have this device here. It's a visual fault locator for fiber optic cables. So you can plug it onto a fiber optic cable and it exactly focuses the light into the cable. So out of the other end is my laser light now. So this has the advantage that at the tip of it here, it's kind of white. So you can actually see how bright the laser light is at the tip, even when it's completely on the surface. Whereas with our normal laser pointer, you put it on the surface and you can't even see anything, so you don't even know what's happening. So let's try it with our fiber optic cable exactly focused off of our silvered mirror here. So I'm just gonna aim it at itself. I'm gonna put it right on the surface to direct it exactly right back in. Okay, so I'm putting it on there. It's off center, but when I find the exact right reflection, you can see it goes completely dim. It's so dim you can barely see the red light at all. But then when I get it off center, it's bright again. So shining the laser back into itself actually made it dimmer. I can get it to almost completely cancel out. Look how dim that is. And it's like twitching. I'm not even moving it right now, but it's flickering. So that's when it's off center, then get it on, and it just goes away. Off center, it's super bright, right, and shining it back in and it goes dim. Let's see if we can actually see this effect with just the normal laser and not the fiber optic cable. So you're gonna be looking at the surface of the mirror, diffusing some light right off the surface of the mirror. So we're gonna be looking at that diffuse light coming off the mirror right on the surface. Okay, it's off center on my finger right there. Let's move it on. It actually went dim. Look at that, it's off, then put it on. It gets dimmer. Off center, on. Off center, bright. On center, dim. Look at that, it's barely shining. So I'm barely getting any light out of it. It basically just starts destroying the production of laser light. But why would this happen? Well, when we shine the light back inside the laser, it's no longer in phase with the photons bouncing around inside the laser. Since this light has traveled some distance and come back, the laser production area is specifically tuned to amplify internal photons, not external ones. So we could actually be stimulating emission of photons that are no longer in phase with the ones being produced in the laser. This can lead to destructive interference, meaning we actually get less light. But how could that be possible? We're shining more light in and we're getting less light. Well, it's true. Let me show you another way to visualize this. You can see this interference problem even better if we combine beams of laser light that are outside of the laser itself. This is called a Michelson interferometer. In this setup, I take my laser light and split it through a beam splitter. So half of the light hits a mirror behind it and half hits a mirror at a right angle. Then each of these beams combine together at one single point on the back here. Okay, so here's my actual setup. So here are my two light sources. They're actually mirrors in this case. And then what I have here is just a lens that's gonna spread out the light so we can see it better. Because this is just a laser pointer, so basically I would just get a tiny little dot. See how that's just a tiny little dot? So I'm gonna spread it out with a lens here so we can see it better. Okay, so here's what shows up on the backstop when I have one light, kind of this dim red patch. But when I turn on the other light, it gets brighter, but there's dark spots. So you can see that there's these interference patterns showing up now. When we turn off the other light, then turn it on. Off, on, off, on, off, on. Okay, so now look what it looks like when I place the camera in one of the dark fringes. So I have a hole poked here and I'm gonna put it in the dark fringe and put a camera behind that hole. So you can see what it looks like when I cover one light versus when both are on. So you can see here that it's actually darker with both lights on. And when I cover one light, then it becomes brighter. That's because the camera is now in the dark area, so when both lights are on, it's darker in that fringe. And then when we take away one of the lights, that fringe pattern doesn't show up, and so it's actually brighter, even with just one light. This is happening because the beam paths are not exactly the same, so the light beams get out of phase from each other. In the dark spots, the peaks and valleys of both beams are canceling each other out. This is crazy. It reminds us that light is literally electromagnetic waves that have the same properties as normal waves. They can interfere with each other and even cancel each other out. So that shining two beams of light can actually make less light in some areas rather than more light. One interesting note here is that I found it works best with a red laser pointer. If I try it with my green laser pointer, nothing really happens, even when I get it right on. But that's because green laser pointers actually put out infrared light and then they put it through a frequency doubler crystal like this. And so when you're shining the green light back in, it's just hitting the crystal and it doesn't convert it back to infrared light, so it doesn't mess with the laser at all. And then this one's really hard to see on camera, but this one's a violet laser. And I don't really see any difference in the brightness of light when I shine it back into the laser. So the red light seems to be most affected by it. So in the end, we didn't end up destroying the world by shining a laser on itself. And thanks for watching another episode of the Action Lab, and we'll see you next time.